So today, it's that time of year. You get everyone around, you get your teams, you teach the kids team basics, how to take and carry the ball, how to take and work together. It's time for hot wings. And what time brings hot wings? Of course, Easter. No, not really. We're talking Super Bowl, New Year's, whenever you like to have your hot wings. I am not by far going to get into it with all the purists. My recipe, my wife likes it. If she eats it, I'm happy. All right? For those of you who like the spice, like habanero wings and so on, we're going to cover how to do that. All right? But the first thing is the basics. Now, people go, well, buffalo wings must be fried naked, and if you do this or if you put flour with this, it's not a pure, real chicken wing. Don't worry about that. If you do it the way that you like it, and you eat it, and the family eats it, it's good to go. All right? So, let's have a look here. Today, we're going to be doing deep fried. And they're not going to have a batter. They are going to have a coating. And here's how it's going to work. Because I wrote down all my stuff from the noggin up here. My recipe is going to vary because I am using homemade flours. Very, very important to remember. They take longer to absorb liquids. They'll have a totally different taste. All right. Now, my white flour, I get most of the bran out, about 99 to 99.5% of the bran out of the flour before I use it in these kinds of recipes, cakes and stuff like that. If I'm doing a bread, I'll maybe leave 25% of the fiber in there. Help the old digestional tract, So, in this, I'm going to give you a portion for about 10 to 15 moderate to large size chicken wings. That's the leggets or the leg pieces and the wing pieces combined. You can add to this as you go. All right, so, and I totally forgot to get that. Give me a second. I forgot to write a couple of things down when I was doing my listing, and it just bink. So, we're going to look at a half a cup of flour, a half a cup of rice flour. Start with, depending again upon your tolerances, use a half a teaspoon of salt, a half a teaspoon of garlic powder, a half a teaspoon of smoked paprika powder, a half a teaspoon of ground thyme, and ground oregano. Now that's just the basic thing. If you want to put other spices and stuff in there, that's up to you. This is just the base for those, I call them the tourist people, who basically prefer everything bland because they travel around and can't eat other foods. I'm not going to get into that either. Let's just say the wife is a bland person. Okay. Give her a piece of bread and a sausage and she's happy to go. Sit down, make her an entire Japanese meal, and she just looks at you like, I don't like eating this. All right, to each their own. So, now, let's move on over to the next phase. Oh, the pepper. This is my pepper powder. It's what I make. It's in the pepper powder recipe section. It's the fermented and everything. You have to decide what's going to be spicy enough for you. If you're going to go with like the habanero or the ghost pepper type spices, you've got to decide. And what I would suggest doing is once your mix is together, start with a little bit. Mix it, sample it. Once you get a twang, then do one test piece and go from there on how much more you put in. Because if you're going to be eating a lot of hot wings or chicken wings or however you want to do it, whether it's baked, fried, whatever, because you can do this with any of them, you got to remember, it's the overall content. That stuff's going to build up and it will devastate your intestinal tract, especially if you're not used to eating a lot of hot foods. Okay? I eat jalapenos almost every day, but it's nothing like eating this type of stuff that I make. I use this stuff in margin because it will step up and kick you in the behind an hour later. Literally. Okay? Eat ice cream. Then, you say, come on, ice cream? All right. If you don't know the joke, look it up. Okay, so let's get on with the first steps. We have our stuff mixed up. I've got it here in a little bowl, all mixed, all my dry ingredients, except my pepper, because I'm cooking my wife's wings first. So let's move on over there and get started. So as usual, I've got a lot of other stuff going in the background. Breads are drying. Stuff is being cleaned up and has to go back into storage from Christmas, because I'm doing this for New Year's. So we have our powder, our dry. And the first thing you're going to do is you're going to take your chicken wings and you're going to soak them about at least a minimum of 45 minutes or at least 2 hours in milk. The lactates and the acids in the milk helps pull out, saturate the chicken, and soften the meat. Okay, if you're one of these, I don't like milk products, or I can't eat milk products, or whatever, you can do a water brine type mixture. But just remember, the salt's in that brine, so watch what you put into your dry mix. All right. I also hear that brine with a little bit of lemon juice. I haven't really tried it, but I hear a little bit of lemon juice in there also helps soften that meat up. So let me get that out of the way so we don't have it. We have old trusty Betsy here. This thing's about 25 years old. I've had to rebuild it once. I don't like using it a lot because it is a pain to clean. But because we're doing a lot of wings, I'm not going to be using my little do-it-yourself small one. We're bringing out the big guns, okay? Here's what we're going to do. Our chicken is soaked. And what I did is I kept the bag that the chicken came in, rinsed it out, just rolled it up, put it in the fridge so that, things didn't grow in it for the several hours that the chicken was soaking. We're going to use this in a second. And to do that, we need to first dry it out, because we don't need that excess moisture in there from when I rinsed it out. We got our chicken and our milk. Then what we're going to do is I'm bringing out a second bowl. In that second bowl, I'm putting a little strainer, okay? Because we're going to take the chicken now, and we're just going to lay it into the strainer and just let it drain off. We're not going to dry it. We still want it moist, but we don't want it wet, okay? Always cover this that way while it's sitting over on the side. Especially here in Germany, I don't have critters flying into it. Or, it's winter time here right now. We don't have the fly problem, like when I did the do-it-yourself fly zapper. That's for the summer stuff, when everybody leaves their damn windows open and there's no fly screens here. So, once this is done, we're just going to take it and we're going to roll it and pack it Making sure we got all the little holes, nooks, and crannies. Okay. Oh, that's what I forgot to put in there. I knew I forgot something. We forgot our tablespoon of black pepper. And tablespoon, sorry, a half a tablespoon of black pepper. Now, I thought I wasn't smelling, there was a smell missing. And then it dawned on me, I wasn't smelling the pepper. I do not smoke. I rarely ever drink. So my nose is fairly good. Now we're simply going to take this and put it into our bag and let it sit. And what we're doing is letting that flour absorb the moisture, the external moisture from the chicken. Now while we're doing this, we're heating our oil to about 185 Celsius. No more than 190. And again, know your equipment, know how it's going to cook, your cooking times. Because we want to make sure this chicken is cooked all the way through. Don't know how many times I went to chicken places, bought chicken and the oil was too hot, so it cooked all the outside, but when you got down near the bone, it was nothing but uncooked meat. I normally like to cook mine at about 180 to 185 Celsius. That's just under 375 Fahrenheit. You'll have to check that. See, this is making a light coating, but not a doughy coating. The reason that tempura is so crunchy is because they use rice flour, and that's why we're using half regular and half rice flour. And this chicken now, when I pull it out, you'll notice it has sort of a moist, wet look to it. That's because now it's starting to absorb that flour, or the flour starting to absorb the, or the dry mix, I should say, is starting to absorb the exterior moisture. This will help it stick onto the chicken. At this point, I'm going to run these back into here. I mean, you can really see it there, the moisture on it. Again, depending upon your cooker size, depends on how much chicken you're going to put in there. This should take about 8 to 10 minutes at 185 Celsius, because these are some fairly large chicken wings. Lay these in so they're not stacked on top of each other. You're going to let that cook for about a minute or 2 minutes so it sets, and then we're going to lightly shake it so it separates any chicken that may be sticking together. You notice I'm not putting this into the dry mix yet, because all it'll do is just keep absorbing, then you'll get a doughy-like texture, not a crunchy texture over your chicken. And we'll get this cooked and then come back and see how it looks. Now here's a little secret. These have come out very, very lightly coated and crispy. But if you want more coating, about 5 minutes before you pull them, you put your next set into your dry mix, you roll each one, and then you start rolling once they're all in. Then you just sort of roll and pack them. This will press out a little bit more liquids, and in turn allow more dry mix to stick to your chicken. A lot of these chicken places, the reason that it looks so flaky and so on is they use a batter. They'll dip it, then roll it, then throw it in, and as it fries, all the flour and stuff will pull away, making that crispy texture around it. You can do it that way. This way is just the way that the wife likes it. You'll notice also your chicken will start floating. This is a good sign that it's getting cooked inside. Right now I'm at about 10 minutes. It takes about 12 minutes to cook at this temperature. My chicken's already floating. It's got a nice light brown color all over it, nice even texture. So we'll see how it looks once I get everything done. And there you go. Now, since you hung around this long, I'll give you a little bonus recipe on what I do with some of my leftover dry mix and stuff. So as my last set of chicken's cooking, I've taken some of the dry mix, some of the leftover milk, and made myself a really thick batter. Now you want to start it a little wetter, in my case, because I'm using the homemade flours, to let it soak up, and that's going to take about 5 or 10 minutes, which is just about right for the end of the chicken to be cooked. And then we are going to make dip fried zucchini sticks. I'll show you how I do those. Have you ever had it to where, you know, you pick them up with the tongs or something, dip it, when you put it in, there's always that blind spot there? But what we're going to do, we're going to take a fork, get it, dip it, and then when it goes into the oil, right above the oil so it doesn't splash, we're just going to use another fork and slide it out. Okay? Now I'm heating my oil up to 190 degrees Celsius because we need that for a good tempura cook. Now a lot of people put starch in their tempura batter, and this is not a bad thing. However, we're already using 50% rice flour, so we're good to go because rice is heavy in starch. My batter is not thick, but fairly sticky. Not as thick as pancake batter. Some people like it that way. I'm going to move this here. That way I'm not dribbling stuff all over the place. Let that run off just a second. Put it into the oil. Boom. Okay, so everything's done. There's our tempura zucchinis. I put everything down wedge down so everything drains. I don't lay them on top of each other as much as I try to avoid that. Even when I'm doing onion rings, I'll lay them on the edges so they drain down and not on top of the ones below them. Once that's done, we have a little bit of batter left. Now, normally when you're frying fish and stuff, you have these little crumbles that come out. Okay? And normally we call those cracklings. Not to be confused with pork cracklings. Totally different. So what we're going to do is simply take this and we're just going to dribble it in. You got to be careful, they will stick to the bottom grilling on your thing. If you have trouble with that, you can always remove the grilling. You're going to have to filter your oil anyway, but I put it in without thinking, so we'll just continue on. There we go. That's the last of that. And there you go. Nice little crunchy puffies to go on the side. We're going to cut this off, bring this down, close that, unplug it, let that cool, and then we'll filter that once it's manageable. And there you go. Hot deep fried chicken wings, spicy if you want, a side of tempura zucchini, and extra cracklings for funsies.